everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Sharon, and this is a channel that is dedicated to all things related to narcissism. A few days ago, I was driving home from work when I got the phone call that I was anticipating but dreading at the same time. It was my vet calling to tell me that my dog's ashes are ready to be picked up so I could bring Belle home. My Bichon Frise, my little dog, passed away last Monday from congestive heart failure. Now, I knew she had congestive heart failure. She was diagnosed almost a year ago. So in that way, I guess I knew it was coming, so it wasn't a complete shock, but still, I didn't want, I wanted her to live forever. And I think it's another reminder. It was a reminder to me, not that I needed it, but, when you get an animal, when you get a pet, a timer starts. Eventually, you have to give them back. But you know what? Even with that, I'd do it all again. I'd do it all again. I would. It's almost like childbirth. It hurts so bad. And in that moment, you think, oh, never again. But then, that love is there. And love is so important. And I mean, think about even just for many of us, that's really the whole where everything stems, all the marital issues we have, it stems from a complete lack of love. When you're with somebody toxic, narcissist, other toxic individual, they don't love. So there's this void. And when you're an empath, I feel sometimes, just stuffed with emotion and love, just shoved in there. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's going to be bursting out of my pores at any time. And I have so much to give, and I want to give that. And I lavish love on my family and my animals, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But for so many years, it was just stifled with the narcissist, and they just bring us down, and that's all in there. And there's just, and it hurts when there's nowhere for it to go. But our animals so often can be this outlet where you can just lavish them and they can really get us to another point, another stage. They can get us through another day sometimes. One of the worst days I had with my ex was at the end when we weren't even together at the time. The worst day that we were together, my ex, he went crazy. It was an insane situation. He essentially accused me of assaulting him. It didn't happen. Everyone knew it didn't happen. 300-pound man told them that I, 100 pounds, lifted him with one hand and repeatedly banged his head into the wall while I was on the phone with 911 on the other line. I was not out of breath, nothing. So, this was absurd. It wasn't true. My kids also witnessed this, and, they also confirmed that this did not happen. So everyone knew this. But, and I'm actually, just so you know, I'm not as bitter as I might sound. It's just important. When I tell you these things, this is what happens. I mean, these are realities that people face even when you are innocent or you're, a victim. These things happen. And this is a nothing story compared to what I've heard. So because there was an accusation of abuse, CPS was involved, and they were coming over to the house to investigate me. So I had to tell my kids, and there was a fear. Now, I didn't think it was going to happen, but it might have, and I didn't know. There was the potential that my kids are going to be taken away from me. I had to tell them this. I had to prepare myself for this just in case. So, it was horrible. It was so unbelievably stressful. And I can remember lying in my bed the night before this woman was going to come over, just panic-stricken, like trying not to have a panic attack. And you know what calmed me down? My dogs. I thought to myself, it calmed me down. Just the thought of, okay, worst case scenario, if the kids get taken away, then my dogs will be here. Puck and Belle will be here. It'll be all right. I'll have them here. We'll still be here. Not everything's taken. It's okay. And I will get a lawyer. Who can I have the kids go to? I can probably choose who they go to. My kids are older, so they're not, babies, or where I have to worry that, someone could hurt them and they couldn't say anything, or, I'm like, all right, my kids are, so I felt, all right, I calmed myself down. It was my animals. So in celebration of Belle, in celebration of all our animals, in celebration of love in general, especially on Valentine's Day, I thought it might be fun just to talk a little bit about some animal things, some animal stories. I would love you to share any stories that you have. Some stories I'm going to tell you. I'm going to start with telling you Belle's story because God has been involved in this the whole way through. And then I have a few other stories I want to tell you. These are all true stories that have happened to me with animals. And let's just celebrate the beauty in life, the goodness in life, our little animal friends. So I want to tell you how God was involved with Belle. When she was diagnosed with congestive heart failure last April, you want to know something? It still stuns me that this happened. It's incredible to me sometimes the way that the mind works. She had this cough. Now, I'm very familiar with congestive heart failure, and I know what it is, and I understand the symptoms, everything. For some reason, I think it's because I was in denial because it was my dog, and I couldn't go there. I thought she had, she was coughing. It wasn't horrible, just enough that I was like, she probably just has a little chest infection. Let's just get her chest x-ray and get her some antibiotics. That's what I'm thinking, right? To my shock, although to my disbelief, here I am, and we had the x-ray, and no, she has congestive heart failure. And so the doctor's talking to me, and we're going back and forth, and all of a sudden, he realized that I was missing something huge. This is not good news. This is fatal. She's not going to survive this. So even though I knew that, there was something blocking me. And then it hit me, and I was, no, and I was angry. No, God, you can't have her. And I refuse, I refuse. She's mine. And I was holding her tight like God was trying to take her right then. So the first few weeks was difficult. I was adjusting to this and accepting this, and I never, actually, guys, I really didn't ever accept it until the last hour, which I'll tell you. So I fought this. And Belle's birthday is in July, and then, of course, Christmas in December. I asked God, please, just give me one more birthday, one more Christmas. And I felt he said he would. I was confident that he was going to give me this year, and he did. And then so generously, he gave me even the whole month of January. And my birthday's in January, so I got my birthday with her too. And, I remember when it was November, and I told God, I can't do it. I can't even think about her not being here. So I can't prepare. I can't do it. January comes along, and I knew that it was coming to an end. And I just couldn't accept it. I couldn't accept it. And I still prayed earnestly for healing for this dog. And do you want to know something, you guys? 1 hour before she passed away, I said to God, I reluctantly accept your will. And he gave me 1 more hour with this beautiful dog. And she passed away easily, peacefully into my arms. In another prayer that I had said to God, I told him I was afraid for the end. And I told him I was really, really hoping that she would pass peacefully at home in my arms, is what I desperately wanted for her. And I wanted it to be calm. I didn't want to be panicked or freaking out or crying or, anything like that. And I'm going to tell you how merciful God was to me. In that moment, she just breathed in a few times. Each time, I was able to say calmly, I love you, Belle. I love you, Belle. And she went straight from my arms into heaven, straight to God. And it was such a blessing. And I'm so grateful for that. But that's not the only blessing that I've ever had with animals. And I know so many of you can relate to that. So I want to tell you a few special situations, and then please tell me yours. And thank you for indulging me on Valentine's Day to celebrate the love that we have for our little furry creatures. Although in my case, not always. You guys know that I'm a scaly creature person too. I'm going to tell you about my little rabbit, Sammy. So when you have a lot of animals, like me, people tend to want to give you animals, just if they don't want their animal anymore. And this will happen, hamsters, gerbils, guinea pigs, they think that you will take all animals. I don't take animals for the most part, except this one occasion. So my daughter was pet sitting for these people, and they had this little rabbit, and they didn't want him. So they had rescued this rabbit, and they didn't want him. They were trying to get him a home, and they couldn't get him a home. And he was living in this little temporary situation. And my daughter was pet sitting for them. They had cats as well. And my daughter told this woman that she was pet sitting that she loved the rabbit. And the woman's like, well, you can have it if you want it. So Paris is begging me to have this rabbit. And let me tell you what was going on in my life at the time when this was happening. My ex was giving me yet another silent treatment, months long. I was living in high anxiety, constant stress, no love in my life, desperate, miserable, it was just, the void and pain was just unbearable. My ex was the king, the master of silent treatments, just the power over himself to just completely disregard me was just, I'm telling you, impressive, and I do not mean that in a positive way. It was disgusting, revolting, and demonic, the ability that he had, and I felt it deeply. So when my daughter is telling me about this rabbit who just, they didn't want him, and there was something in me, and I felt so bad for this little rabbit. So I went over to see the rabbit, and he wasn't being like mistreated or anything, but it's also a rabbit, and I knew he had to be mine. And you want to know something, you guys? I bring this rabbit home, 6 pounds of rabbit, and he was the sweetest little boy. I'm telling you how much he weighed because he was a newborn weight, and he loved to be cuddled. And you want to know, they never picked him up. If they moved him, they put him in a carrier. I know this sounds weird. They were good people, so they were just weird when I think about this. I guess they just weren't familiar with rabbits, so they would move him. If they had to move him to a different room, they would put him in the carrier to move him per room. They never picked him up and cuddled him. And this rabbit lived for cuddles. So it was just the way God brought us together. This little rabbit who so desperately needed to be cuddled and loved, and me who so desperately needed somebody to cuddle and love, and his weight, and he was just right against my chest. It was healing for me. And it just, when you think about, I just think about how amazing that is. And I miss little Sammy. I miss my Sammy. That's one of the animals that I think, Joe doesn't want to get any more animals, and I can understand that. And it's because of the heartbreak. But I realize with the passing of Belle, I think I need an animal to love. I need an animal to lavish attention. And so I do have my little, you guys know I still have my cat and my other dog, but I think I need like a little bunny, somebody that I can just cuddle with. I don't know. Let me know if I'm crazy, but that's what I'm thinking. But anyways, so there's my little Sammy. I want to tell you my crow story. This is an amazing story too. Have you ever heard how intelligent crows are? They're very intelligent. I know that they are. Well, I used to have, when I lived in New Hampshire, I had these crows that used to come into the yard, and I used to feed them. So I used to give them peanuts, and they eventually knew me. So they knew my car. So they would follow the car. And so I would get, in my driveway, and they would wait, and I knew they wanted peanuts. So I would give them peanuts. And so this was just a regular thing that happened. Well, one day on the other side of the house, I happened to notice in the woods that something was going on in the woods. There was just a ruckus. Just something was swinging from the trees, and I needed to go see what it was. So I go, and I'm walking into the woods. All of a sudden, I have all these crows. There were about a half a dozen of them swooping down at me. So I'm trying to walk into the woods to see what was going on, and had these crows following me, swooping down. They were blocking me. They were literally swooping down in front of me, to the point that I didn't know what the heck was going on, and it scared me. And so I backed away. And do you want to know what I found out? Later, when I was looking at the area, there was a yellow jacket nest. That was what I was seeing in the woods. It was swinging from the trees back and forth. It was gonna fall. They were preventing me from going over to the yellow jacket nest. Isn't that incredible? This is a true story. When I think about these things, the love that animals have, the love that they're able to give. And of course, I can't tell you this without telling you about my little Lawson. You guys, you probably heard me tell you before. Lawson is literally a mouse. So he was a mouse that my kids found. We had a 3-acre yard in New Hampshire. they found a little deer mouse that was 1 inch long. I mean, just the odds of that. Imagine even if somebody had said to me, there's an abandoned deer mouse somewhere in your yard, and I was scouring the yard, the odds of me finding it. So they found this little deer mouse, this abandoned deer mouse. He was in this little ball. His eyes were still sealed shut. He was in this ball. Actually, I wasn't even sure what he was when I first picked him up. Because at first we left him there. We were hoping his mother was going to come back. When she didn't, brought him in the house, ended up hand raising this little mouse. This mouse, I am telling you, mice, they have the ability to love. He knew his name. He would come when you called him. I made him this gigantic, we called it the mouse mansion. I ended up keeping him. He lived for 4 years. I couldn't release him because he had never seen another mouse, and he was a male, so he couldn't live with other mice. But he would believe me. This mouse was living the life. He lived in this mouse mansion. He would come. He imprinted on me. I was his mother. He would come, and if I called him, or if he wanted to leave his cage, he would sit in a certain area. I would open it up. He would jump out and come be with me. It was the love he gave. It was incredible. And all of this is around us. And we forget. It's so easy to forget, of course, when you're living in horror. When you're living with a narcissist, you are living in a different reality. And hell is all around you. But maybe you're blessed and you have an animal there too. And it can make such a difference. It can keep us going. It can get us moving. I always thought, my kids, well, let me just backtrack for a second. My kids and I we've rescued several animals, like wild animals we found, we happened to be at the right place at the right time. One of them one time was a mouse that we saved. And this particular mouse, something was wrong. Its tail it had half a tail, so it was easily identifiable. So I found this mouse with half a tail, and we brought it in the house. It was in shock. It was laying on the ground. It wasn't even moving. It was in shock. We nursed it back to health, and we released it. Now this is a mouse that we knew, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to end the video with this has always, ever since this happened, this has been a reminder to me the difference between a narcissist and somebody who isn't a narcissist. And it can really come down to this. So we had this mouse, we saved it, we released it. Well, one day, a month or two later, I was coming home from church with the kids, and my ex was in the driveway. And as I was turning in the driveway, he rushed towards me in just absolute horror. He was just very upset. So he's freaking out, telling me that something horrible happened, and he was mowing the lawn, and he basically, what happened was, in the lawnmower was that mouse with a bunch of babies, and when he started up, they just went flying everywhere. And I guess the pinkies, the babies, were all not alive, they were unalived, and then the mother was still, but she was twitching in the driveway. I was horrified, and I raced over to try to comfort this mouse that was not doing well. It was not doing well, and my ex was absolutely horrified. Don't touch it! Don't touch it! Get away from it! Don't touch it! Don't touch it! He was so freaked out. He blew up this family. Now I know it was an accident, but he blew up this family, right? And then when one of the family members is in pain, scared, needing of comfort, he prefers to just leave it and just let it just take care of himself and just run away from it and not deal with it. That is so fitting to me for the reality that we deal with these narcissists. So don't forget, there is goodness in this world, and let's celebrate it today. I'm not a big Valentine's person. I told Joe, don't buy me anything. I do not want anything. But it's a day to remember love, and think about the love that our animals give us. It's the most incredible thing in the entire world. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back next week with a new video, but I appreciate this, and please tell me your animal stories. And guys, I've been so blessed to have my little Belle in my life, so God bless her.